I was able to go down to the Last Prisoner Project fundraiser. And when I saw this group of people coming together and caring about cannabis prisoners, people like me, I was immediately like, sign me up. What can I do to help? This is crazy that it's now this great new growing industry. And so many people like myself are still sitting in prisons, some for much longer than me. So I was lucky to only get a 10-year sentence. So to see people with life sentences, but also come out to this growing industry was incredible. So I said, sign me up. And after about a year and a half of volunteering, I came on board full time, and that was 6 years ago. So really grateful to be here.
Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate you sharing that with us all. Adrian, please.
Yeah, my name is Adrian Rucha. I'm the legislative strategist and policy director for Last Prisoner Project. And my background really is in criminal justice reform. So I came to this organization having two previous roles that really touched adjacent to penalties for cannabis, but weren't directly related to that. And so I used to work for an organization called the Crime and Justice Institute, which helps states provide technical assistance for what's called the Justice Reinvestment Act. So it's a program ran by the Bureau of Justice Statistics to basically go into states and say, you have an incarceration problem, and how do we reduce that and also bring cost savings to the state without harming public safety? And no surprise there, the number one driver in every state that we worked in, drug offenses were the number one cause of especially long sentences, as Stephanie said. And before that, I worked for the Southern Poverty Law Center in Mississippi and Louisiana. And that's really where my start with Last Prisoner Project actually began about 6 years ago when I was in a small community in Mississippi where I was helping build a class action lawsuit related to education services. And I had a mom come up to me and tell me she would really like to participate in her students' individualized education plan, but she couldn't because she got caught with marijuana when she was 18. So just as an adult. And I remember thinking, man, that's really heartbreaking. I can't believe that happened. And then I heard the same story from a different person, and I thought, damn, that's a shame. And by the time I heard it the third time, it really became clear that this isn't about the individual, it's about the penalty. And what we're doing for this is absurd. And we clearly need a systemic sort of approach to figure out how do we undo this, because the collateral consequences of even just a simple misdemeanor are severe. And so that had always stuck with me. And so when the opportunity to work with Last Prisoner Project and really focus on that specific portion of the criminal legal system presented itself, I really wanted to get involved in it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a very important and incredible work that you guys are doing. So, with that said, for those who might be new to your work, how would you describe kind of the core mission of Last Prisoner Project? Stephanie, if you'd like to take this now.
Sure. Um, the mission is quite simple. Um, we want the release of every last cannabis prisoner because the way we look at it is if what's good for one is good for all. So, sure, if you are selling cannabis or dealing with cannabis on any level, there are certain things that you have to do first. And if you don't do those things, there may be a penalty, there may be a fine. If you sell hot dogs on the street without a license, you're not going to prison for it. And we want to take away that stigmatization of cannabis for everyone on the criminal level and allow people to make the punishment fit the crime.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want anyone in prison for cannabis. So that's the basis of the mission.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with Stephanie more. I think, when I'm working with states, the thing that I always bring up is that, legalization isn't justice. Undoing the harms caused by cannabis prohibition, that's justice. And that's really what we want to focus on is that legalization sort of proactive relief for individuals, right? We're going to narrow the funnel for individuals who can potentially be arrested. But what about the hundreds of thousands of people that came before them? And those are the things that are often forgotten in legalization components. And that's really what we focus on is to make sure that there are laws in place to hold government responsible for saying this thing that is no longer a crime, this thing that people are now profiting off of and selling and commercializing, there is a fundamental duty and injustice to leave people behind in prison and not clear their criminal records for things that are no longer considered criminal offenses, but economic activity.
Yes, agree completely there. Thank you so much. So how, with that said, how do you think your vision and scope has changed and evolved over the years? Stephanie, you want to take that one?
Um, when we first started out, it was really, we really felt like it was like a war against the plant. And once we showed people that the plant isn't the problem, then we had to look at, well, what is the problem then? Because obviously the plant's not the problem because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So it's not the plant. So taking away that focus on the plant so much and placing it on the people is kind of where we've kind of switched up from 2019 to now. We know it's really about reuniting families and the lives of people that are losing years. You know, Richard DeLisi, 32 years of his life gone because of the plant. And now he has a cannabis brand that's thriving, Delicioso. So it was never the plant. So yeah, for me, that's what it is.
Very well said. Thank you so much. And Adrian, I know you've already kind of touched on this a little bit, but is at the core of kind of what you guys do. So can you share the importance of criminal justice reform within the context of cannabis legalization?
Yeah, absolutely. So, just to piggyback a little bit off of what Stephanie said, when we first started off and we were taking that plant-centric approach, it really was about providing pro bono representation to individuals who had been, had particularly egregious offenses. And when you scratch the surface on that, you learn very quickly that there's just no way you're gonna be able to represent everybody because the scale of the problem is that large. Since at least 1972, in some communities longer, this has been prosecuted with the urgency of a war. It was built into the title, right? The war on drugs. And so that we, in working with our executive director, Sarah Gersten, we really wanted to develop a robust policy plan because that was really the only way we thought we're going to get scalable reform in order to actually touch the lives of the hundreds of thousands of individuals that we're just never going to be able to officially provide legal representation to. And so that's what our policy work really looks like. And what that looks like at a lot of times is retroactive relief. So the idea that there should be state-initiated automated record clearance. So the idea that anybody who has a criminal penalty for cannabis that has already occurred has that wiped from their criminal record free of charge. No buttons, nothing to do, no petitions or anything like that. And the other component of that is sentence modification. So anybody who's serving time for cannabis, anybody who's had their sentence enhanced because of cannabis, has an opportunity to go before a judge and have that sentence reconsidered and have that time reduced or removed completely from their record. And that is actually a relatively new concept. I think people are listening to me say this and shaking their heads going, that makes sense. That was actually not built into the process. So if you look at some of the first states that legalized cannabis, Washington State, Oregon State, California, only California is the state that actually provides state-initiated record clearance and automated sentence modification, which was a bill that we designed in 2022. So that's how long it can take between the time of legalization to the time of actually providing that relief for individuals who've already been impacted by this. And this is really our goal is to spread that around. And we're really fortunate and lucky that the impact of our work in California has actually led that states that have recently legalized, up to and including Ohio and Missouri, have included at least automated record clearance as part of the legalization package. So it is becoming a more normal thing that as states are considering legalization, they're also thinking about the harms that were caused by cannabis during the prohibition years.
That's amazing. That's really incredible work that you guys are doing, which segues perfectly into our next topic, which is really want to deep dive into some of the initiatives that you guys are working on and how people can get involved and just the impact that you're having. So I'd love to first talk about your Roundup program, Roll It Up for Justice. So Stephanie, it's a really smart way I know to create consistent community support, but how did this initiative come about? And I'm actually going to take us over there on the website so we can all see it together. All right.
Yes, the Roll It Up for Justice program is really great because it's a way that we can help fund the work that we do, but also get the community involved. So what we do is we partner with dispensaries or online retail shops, and they can just provide the information because obviously we're a nonprofit, so fundraising is important, but it, putting out information is also important. So being able to work with all these different dispensaries and online sites that have our information up, so many people don't understand the depth of how many people are really incarcerated for prison. And we can say tens of thousands of people, and for some people it doesn't register to them that that many people are in prison for the thing that they're in the store actively purchasing with no fear of being arrested. And I didn't have a fear of being arrested until I was. So
Mhm.
even though it is legal in different states, federally everyone's illegal,
Yeah,
and
very good
and
point.
they can come for you at any time. And we've had constituents come to us because they were in a gray area, or because you know they just did something that got them caught up. But the Roll It Up for Justice program really involves the community, and it's really nice to have the bud tenders involved who can initiate the conversations, answer questions. We have a bud tender program, and that's such a great thing because we can't be everywhere to give this information out. So we put together a really cool bud tender program to empower bud tenders to be able to answer questions about the work that we do. And in return, we just, besides our ever dying appreciation, we try to have contests and give giveaways and just say thank you to them. But the Roll It Up Justice program is basically, you can go into a dispensary that we partner with. Um, when you purchase something, hopefully by the time you've stood in line, you've seen a video on the screen, you've read some materials around, you've seen some stories like, Kevin Allen and Parker Coleman and different people, and it's piqued your interest. So when you get up to make your purchase, the bud tender might say, "Hey, do you want to give $1 or $4.20 for to help fight and bring cannabis prisoners home?" So super excited that that's a large part of our funding. So very grateful to everyone for that.
That's amazing. So you mentioned the bud tender program. So how would you encourage dispensaries and bud tenders to get involved and take a part of this program?
Absolutely. We have on our website, you can sign up for the Bud Tender program. We partnered with Learn Brands, and Learn Brands put together a really cool, just kind of short course, takes probably 30 minutes total to complete. And once you complete that, you have a really strong grip on what we do as an org. So once someone asks you, "Oh, well, what is this Last Prisoner Project?" They have the tools to say, "Well, this is what they do. This is when they were founded." Give all the information. So really grateful for that. And the bud tenders are boots on the ground. We're a pretty small organization. We are nationwide. We're all in different places, but it's those bud tenders that really, either they can encourage people and to get involved, and you can see that through what comes out of it. Some of the smallest stores collect the most signatures and send the most letters through our letter writing program, get the most donations, and then some of the biggest, most you know modern places don't do that. And I
Mhm.
asked one of our small places, "Why do you guys do so well? Why do you guys send so many letters? Why do so many petitions come from your area?" And they said, "Because we talk to every single person about it. It's a priority for us." So if it's not a priority, it's not going to move the community. But if it
Mhm.
is a priority, you see really great numbers come out of that.
I love that. I feel like awareness is such a big part of it because I know if I saw sign up for that at the dispensary, I would feel so, happy to be able to participate and help on such an important front. So great program that you guys are doing, and I love to be able to share it with everyone here today. And we'll send all these out as resources with our recording too after this. So anyone that wants to get involved, you'll easily be able to do that. All right, moving on to our next topic, which is equally as important, just as awesome. Let's talk a little bit about policy and advocacy work. And Adrian, I know this is your like bread and butter here, your main thing. So I am very excited to hear what you have to say. So, what are some of the most pressing policy issues that you guys are currently addressing? And I will switch over to the policy page for you guys.
Yeah, so our goal is still fundamentally retroactive relief, and we really do take any tool is a good tool approach. And I think, going back to what Stephanie was just saying about our roll-up program, some of our greatest advocates in the State House are individuals that we meet through this community and through partnerships, through our budtender program and dispensaries and Roll It Up for Justice, because every person's close call is another person's life-altering consequence. And it's always just that close, right? Especially as Stephanie was mentioning, right? Like, and writ large, legalization is a relatively novel concept. So everybody at some point had a close call, and someone else went to prison or someone else got a criminal record. And I don't think people understand that even if you never got convicted, so let's say you were arrested and you got a lenient judge or a lenient prosecutor, and they said, oh, everybody makes mistakes. I'm not going to charge you for this. That's still on your criminal record. And the process to get that removed is incredibly burdensome. So for the rest of your life, you will have a criminal record that imposes completely life-altering collateral consequences. I mean, we're talking about a scarlet letter that you cannot get rid of unless you
Mhm.
file onerous paperwork in most states. And that's really the first thing that we want to address is that there are a lot of people who were even never convicted but were caught who have these things on the record that cannot apply for student loans, cannot get a mortgage loan, in some instances, in some states, can't apply for life insurance. So you're talking about, one decision that you made when you're 19, 20, sometimes with our constituents, that's impacting you for the rest of your life and possibly your kid's life. And what sort of trajectory does that send you on? And one of the things that we know from our work and working with other partners and work that I've done previously to this is that petitions just don't work. Research has shown that less than 5% of individuals who are eligible for the relief, right? So you've jumped through all the hoops,
Mhm.
you've filled your paperwork out, never actually even complete the process because it is that burdensome. And we saw that directly with our work in California, and that's one of the bills that you'll see here, AB 1706. So before AB 1706, which was a law that we designed with Assemblymember Mia Bonta and the Department of Justice there in California, they did pass a law in California in 2016 that basically said, hey, if you had a cannabis conviction, you can fill out some paperwork, we'll take it off your record. Everybody was really happy. We started digging into the details of that, and we found that there were about 500,000 records that were eligible under that law that had never been acted on. So of that 500,000, 4,800 people had actually successfully gotten relief.
Oh
And
my
to us,
goodness.
that was a cataclysmic failure. So it wasn't enough just to create the opportunity. We had to figure out how do you compel the state to actually provide this relief because they were responsible for this consequence and they should be responsible for undoing it. And I think that's a really interesting component of the work that we're doing is that really when we think about the criminal legal system, it moves in one direction. It's linear towards the outcome and it's never thinking about what happens when we undo the consequence. How do we go back and fix that? And that's what ABT 1706 did. So I'll spare the details of like all of the politicking on how we made it happen, and I'll skip to the juicy part, which is the results. And as you can see, of that 500,000 cases, 216,157 have been completed because of the work
Wow.
that we are able to do, and that program is still ongoing. So one of the things that I would really highlight that really set a precedent from California that's replicable, and we do it in every state, is reporting requirements. So no state is required to report out how many expungements, cases dismissed, all that sort of stuff that this law is responsible for, modification, recall, all that.
Mhm.
That goes into a silo, and you have no idea unless you FOIA the state. So part of this law that we created, and we've done it in other states, is to say, hey, you have a responsibility to let us know how close you are to completion. So the state of California still puts out an annual report every year to say, here's the impact of this law, here's the counties that are affected, here's how many people have actually been released, dismissed, all that sort of stuff. And it's going to continue until we get as close to that zero as possible. So we are in California getting close to the last prisoner, and we're really excited about that.
I love that. That's absolutely amazing. It's the accountability. You gotta check in, or they're never gonna do it.
Yeah.
So that's really amazing.
Yeah, and as I said at the start of this, like we really do take an anything that works approach, and so Connecticut, I think, is one of those more fascinating ones where, it seems like a relatively small thing, but in the process of legalization in Connecticut, they had a bunch of cases that were sort of stuck in the pipeline, if you will, that were going to be tried, and we ran into this really interesting issue where the Solicitor General of Connecticut basically said, it would be a constitutional violation for the legislator to tell us to dismiss those because they're stuck in the judiciary. So sorry for getting a little poli-sci there, but they were
I
basically
like it.
like throwing their hands up to say like, we agree that these shouldn't be tried, but we can't do anything about it because it's a separation of powers issue. So we worked with the Solicitor General there to be like, this is an issue, and we were going to try and solve it through legislation, but we can't. So what would it look like to actually effectuate a dismissal? And we were able to lobby that office successfully to get over 4,000 cases that were basically pending adjudication, just dismissed and wiped off the book. And so
Oh my
nobody
God.
actually had to go to court for those. So we're really excited about that.
That is incredible. That's really
Yeah.
amazing. I'd be very excited about that too. That's definitely a huge one to be proud of.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's really our goal, right? Just like figuring out every last person and what can we do to bring relief.
yes. So what is like a legislative effort that you're working on, like maybe currently or in the past, even that you were like, obviously these are all amazing. They're all very exciting and just super great work that you're doing to help these people. But is there a specific a legislative effort that you're working on that you want to highlight?
Sure. So I'll highlight two. One is the ongoing work in Pennsylvania. So we are working with legislators there in Pennsylvania. It's not on our website yet because
Oh, okay.
Pennsylvania,
Gonna go there.
if anybody is joining from Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania legalization is a lot like Lucy and the football for folks who enjoy peanuts. They always get very close to it. And they haven't quite gotten it. But the thing that we are excited about there is that we've worked with legislators over the past two legislative sessions that every legalization bill that has been considered includes retroactive relief up to and including sentence modification and complete erasal or expungement of those criminal records. And the last bill that we worked on that actually did pass out of the House, HB 1200, had very robust provisions. I'll sort of spare the details because I don't want to go into all of it. But Pennsylvania has a very tricky statutory relief available because they don't really have a lot of cannabis offenses. They're just considered, writ large drug offenses. And so we had to get really creative about like how do we find these people? And we're really excited to say in HB 1200, we created a model that would have found those individuals, and we think it's replicable in other states. So we'll continue to push on that one. And the other one that I really want to highlight, which is reflected here of the work that we did in Maryland, and we're continuing to push this in other states, is that governors can participate in this, right? In places where the legislator has stalled, like a Pennsylvania, some states give their governor extraordinary power to basically grant pardons writ large. And we were really proud to stand there with Governor Moore's office to design a pardon proclamation to basically clear the records and have follow-up legislation that actually made this law to clear records for pardons. But the largest single state, let me see if I can get this right. The largest single day proclamation for pardons ever in the American history was for cannabis and paraphernalia offenses in Maryland. It was about 175,000 people.
Oh,
And
wow.
it didn't even just stop there. The following year, which you'll see here, we went back to the legislator to provide additional protections under law for those individuals who got pardons that basically effectuated an expungement. And that was really important work that we wanted to do because it was kind of slowing down the process. And we thought, how can we expedite that? Because it's one thing to get a pardon, it's another thing to actually have that effectuate and be able to continue on your life as though it was waiting. And we didn't want people stuck in the pipeline, basically waiting for the paperwork to get completed. And so we are working on a bunch of other states that we are connecting with their governor's office to basically figure out how can we replicate this and make this go on to other states short of legalization and action by the legislator.
It's truly really incredible work. So how do you balance grassroots advocacy with working within legal and political systems? I imagine that gets a bit difficult.
Yeah, and I think that's, we want to complement efforts that are on the ground. We don't want to take away from them. And that's really our value add to legislation campaigns is that we bring a ton of technical assistance so that we're not just putting words on a paper, we're actually making sure that they're implementable and actionable. And we've been able to work with enough states that we have solutions to potential problems that may be unearthed by grassroots advocates on the ground going through this process that we might be able to say like, hey, that's how we can solve this issue. We saw this come up in Rhode Island and we think, you can do that. So that's really our bread and butter is we want to complement the individual work from individuals on the ground by lending our technical expertise and assistance to have those sort of conversations that are very technical. I love getting into the weeds, no pun intended, and really figuring out like, how do we make this work? Because that's really our goal. It's one thing, going back to California to basically say the words on the paper, you got to come find it versus creating a system to say the words are on the paper. Here's what we're going to do about it. Here's how we make sure it gets done. And here are the reporting requirements to make sure that we're communicating it back out to the community and grassroots advocates to keep us accountable to the work that we said we were going to fulfill.
Mhm. It's such important work, and you guys are just doing an absolutely incredible job. And I'm very excited to see what you're able to accomplish next on the policy front. All right. So we've talked a lot about today about what you guys have done, the incredible work that you're doing. I would love for our audience to hear how they can get involved and help support your mission. So if someone's watching today and wants to support Last Prisoner Project, what are the easiest ways to get started? And
There
Stephanie, I'm
are
sorry, I'll pass
so
to you.
there are so many ways. Everybody has a different level of where they're at and what they can do. Some people, it could be financial. Some people, it could be a large, you know, social media platform. It's different things. Some people are like, well, I don't do social media, but I'm happy to go out and get signatures. There's just something for everybody. And I always make a point to say, I try to start every day doing something. It doesn't matter if it's calling a representative. That's usually the first hour of my day is going down the list and seeing who I can remind because there's so many things happening in the world today. Like, where do you focus? And it's very easy for cannabis prisoners to be forgotten, come in very low at the bottom of the list of priorities for that day. But it's our job to not let that happen and to keep reminding people that, yes, we know what's going on in Ukraine, but we also know about the tens of thousands of families affected here in America. So, starting that day out, making a phone call, hopping on the website, signing a petition. Um, we had a Pin to Write History campaign that was an amazing campaign, asking for the governors to release cannabis prisoners in their state. And we've had success with that. Deshaun Durham is one example that really sticks with me. He was a young kid who lived in Kansas, and he was just doing what a 20-year-old who wants to make a little extra money and has a love for the plant was doing. And he ended up getting 8 years in prison. And thankfully, Governor Laura Kelly actually pardoned Deshaun. He came home in time for Christmas. He'll be at our gala in New York City, our Journey to Justice gala, receiving an award because he is now an activist. He is now really into speaking out about his experience. So there's something everyone can do. For me, I just admire advocacy, period. So Breonna Taylor, for example, that's not my area of expertise in fighting for justice for her, but there are some people who do that. They're selling a t-shirt. It's easy for me to buy the t-shirt, and it's not about the t-shirt. I know it's about the donation, but
Mhm.
at the same time, that's the least I could do for that because that's not my area of expertise, but at least that's all I have to do is buy a t-shirt and that helps, you guys out, keep fighting for her. And that's the same way I look at it with us. Um, just do what you can. A reposting the information that we put out. We take a lot of time researching and want to make sure that people have a clear understanding of what's going on. So definitely reposting the information because it's becoming so normalized, which I think is great that cannabis and the industry is becoming so normalized. But at the same time, it's also scary for me because it's becoming so normal that people are forgetting about people that are impacted by it negatively.
Yes.
It's cute to
Mhm.
have, soccer moms drinking a drink at the soccer game instead of, having wine, they're having a cannabis drink. And that face of that canna mom looks very different than a Kevin Allen or a Michael Wood serving life. And we have to remind people having those hard conversations with people in your life that may not agree with cannabis,
Mhm.
but making it less about cannabis, more about justice and equality and fairness.
Yes, so well said. It's really is so important, and agree completely. We can't forget about, just because it's commonplace and normal now, we cannot forget about the people that are still in prison to this day. And so easy to get involved. That was so many incredible ways. And honestly, your t-shirts are super dope. So even if you don't feel comfortable calling, or buy a t-shirt, they're super awesome. I highly encourage you to do it.
It's the easiest way. It's the lowest lift.
Yeah, low hanging fruit. Start there, work your way up, get more involved. Let's all make sure we don't forget. I think that's the most important message here, is to keep fighting for those people that are still behind bars that don't deserve to be. So with that, then what can cannabis companies or dispensaries do to go beyond financial support to help you guys out?
We've had some really amazing participation in some of the policy that Adrian's talking about, because I can talk to um, legislators and the people, the powers that be, all day, and it falls on deaf ears. But when a CEO of Sweed or a CEO of Dutchy participates, writes a letter, says, I'm in the business, this is the business that we're in, this is how we make our money, this is how much money we make, and we support no one being in prison for cannabis. It's very impactful. So if you're a company, we might call on you. Hey, can you write a letter? Hey, can you write a testimony that we can attach to this policy? So there's many different ways. Like I said, we have programs that, like stickers for change, there's stickers that the dispensary or the brand can purchase. Let's say they have a product that's not really moving in the dispensary. It's been a hard sell. When you dedicate that product and put the sticker on and let people know that if you purchase this, it's actually helping reunite families. It's actually helping bring people home in the fight, change the policy. They really fly off the shelves, and that's a really strong testament to the fact that people want to get involved and they want to help. And so there's many different things like that. Partnering is really easy, and we can do it on many different levels. It could be a letter writing partnership, because even though that doesn't seem to people to be a big thing, it really is impactful to those who are serving the time. Mm-hmm. And I look at it like, I really want to be the help that I wish I had when I was serving my time. If that makes any sense.
It does.
Everything
yes.
that we do, I try to think, how is this going to serve our incarcerated community? Mm-hmm. And letters are one of the easiest. We've digitalized it. You can go on our website. You can look at our digital letter writing guide. You can write a letter right from your phone, and that can really change someone's day. So for brands, for dispensaries, that's a really great team building exercise for people, I feel like, because to be in a privileged space like people in the legal industry are, mm-hmm. to reach back out and say, even though I'm in this privileged space, I really still want to show you support. And I actually, if you do it digitally, I print them out, I address them, I send them out. So I have to kind of scan them to make sure it's like no weird, funny business in the letter. And sometimes I cry when I read some of the letters, and some of the people who are writing the letters, very surprising people I know from very successful companies, starting a pen pal with someone who's incarcerated. It just really sends a level of support behind the walls that I never had, because there was nothing like LPP or a community all together fighting for me. So really excited to have every level of participation for whatever you want to do.
Absolutely.
There's so many ways to get involved. I absolutely love to hear it. Sorry,
And
Adrian, please.
oh no, I was just gonna say, as Stephanie said, there are so many different ways to get involved, and we're always very, very gracious when people donate because this work is not cheap, unfortunately, and it does take, persistent advocacy to make this happen. But want people to just know and feel assured. I believe it's at the bottom of our homepage. It might be, yes. So you can see there our charity navigator and our candid transparency rating. So we have, a 4-star rating and a platinum transparency, which means we opened up our books for a thorough audit, and these basically certify that the vast majority of the money that comes into LPP goes directly either to our constituents, so it goes straight to us, straight to our constituents under their books because we do some programs there, and or it goes directly to the work. So I just want to clarify, these donations matter, and we take them very seriously because they're funding the work that makes this all possible, and that is both a blessing and a responsibility.
Very much so. Thank you guys so much. I feel inspired myself. I know a few things I'm doing after this phone call, which is buying a shirt and writing a letter. So thank you guys. The work you're doing is just so incredible and it's so impactful. And I know the people that have been helped through your programs and your policies are probably so grateful and just happy for what you guys are doing. So thank you guys so much for everything you're doing for the industry and the people that deserve it. Before we wrap or open it up for Q&A, I just want to give you guys both a chance to maybe touch on anything that you didn't get a chance to talk on, or give a last message to the audience.
Yeah,
Stephanie, or yeah, everyone's go.
yeah, I'll start and I'll just say this work is continuing. And really what our goal is here is to say today and for the last few years, it's been cannabis. Cannabis is the thing that we've recently discovered as a people, and obviously this is still going up the federal level and we're working there, that we're rethinking the consequences of this plant. But we're also still undoing those consequences. And really, what our goal here at LPP is to say we don't have to relitigate this every single time. Today, it's cannabis. We're already starting to see this happen with psychedelics and ibogaine to say maybe there's some therapeutic benefits for that. We also know there are people incarcerated for that. So, what we really want to do is say cannabis is our opportunity to build an additional gateway out for individuals who got in because of this. And it doesn't need to stop at cannabis. It can be additional offenses over time. And that's really what we're hoping to do as we build these laws is to say we care about every cannabis prisoner, but we know there aren't just the only cannabis prisoners in there. And what changes we have no control over, but we can control the release valve and mechanism to make sure that we're not having this fight again when it becomes, some sort of psychedelic next. And we're already seeing the writing on the wall and we're working on that. But we want to just really make sure that this work continues in every single state because as Stephanie said, there is no state that has 0 prisoners. That's just not true. We're working on a report to get all those numbers out. Stay tuned for that. It'll be on our website. But really just wanted to say thank you so much for this opportunity to raise awareness for this organization. And we really, really appreciate it, the partnership.
Us too. We are so happy to work with you guys. And please, Stephanie, I would love to give you the opportunity to share as well.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up with what Adrian said. Um, this is, it took us a while to get here. This is not going to be solved overnight. We have been lucky and we have been blessed to have the team that we have to be here 6 years later and still fighting. But it doesn't need to be relitigated. Every single time a cannabis prisoner comes up for a pardon or a clemency, it's always great to see Richard DeLisi or Michael Thompson or Deshaun Durham walk out those gates due to the work that we do. But why is it one person at a time? It doesn't need to be like we can have this, the same thing that got them out through those gates, get a number of people out through those gates. And recidivism is very low with cannabis prisoners. The rate is very low. I know for myself, if I had really thought I was going to get a 10-year sentence, I would have straightened up immediately. But I didn't believe it was possible. I didn't have a criminal history. I'd never been in trouble before. So I didn't think it was actually possible until it was. So when people think it doesn't affect us, it doesn't touch us, either it's going to touch you, it has touched you, or it's touched someone you know, even your community. Mm-hmm. It's touching your community. If you don't care about cannabis prisoners, care about your tax dollars.
Yeah.
40 to $60,000 to keep someone incarcerated on the federal level. So it touches us in ways we may not even know. So um, just know that it's all of our problem, and it can't just be a small few trying to solve our problem. We want to solve the problem, not just our problem.
Completely agree. It definitely is a community effort. And if we want to see real change, that's where it starts, is everyone getting involved, even from the lowest tier of reposting a post to buying a t-shirt to donating to all of the different ways we listed here today to get involved. It does take all of us to make real change happen. And I appreciate so much you guys sharing with us today. And I hope everyone feels as invigorated as I do to go out there and start making this change happen. Um, Stephanie, Adrian, I just want to thank you guys both so much again. Before we open it up for Q&A, just thank you guys for joining us today. And if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat or use the Q&A function, whatever you prefer. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
It looks like we had a couple questions come through. Are we ready
Thank
for
you,
that?
Annalise.
Cool.
Stephanie, Adrian? Yep.
Isabella Wandelian asked, what does restorative justice mean to you personally in one sentence? So for each of you.
I'll go first. For me, it means freedom. It means release. It means taking your thumb off people's heads. After a 10-year sentence, I also had 5 years probation that they fought me on. Thankfully, we have an early termination program, but they fought me on that. So I didn't even benefit from that, but others have. So restorative justice is solving it today, going back and solving it today, bringing people home to today's standards of where we are with cannabis.
Plus one to that, Stephanie. I will say, for me, it's being able to go to sleep at night and not waking up thinking, is today the day? And I say that because I've had individuals. I'm from El Paso. I grew up right next to the border. I have family on both sides of the border. And if you have a cannabis offense, that makes you subject to deportation. And so I've had cousins who, have dual citizenship and had to wonder that, is today the day because of this, that I no longer get to come to high school anymore. And so restorative justice looked for them like getting that record cleared so that they didn't have to worry about that anymore for the next day.
It's very powerful. Thank you guys both for your great answers.
Next question from Alex Baker. What's your vision for what success looks like 5 years from now?
I'll just say for me, certainly we're not still fighting for the basic ask is that no one be in prison for what I can have delivered right now. There's a dispensary across the street from my house, and I can make a delivery order right now and have it delivered. So that should not be an issue. When I first got home, I really did think, oh gosh, it's so open now. You can just walk in, you can just buy it. Like, what? I wait till I start telling people, like, this isn't right. This is going to be a very quick thing. And here we are 6 years later, still fighting, still trying to make the point. So 5 years from now, it shouldn't even be a question. It should be a question of maybe policies, anything like that. But we should not still be fighting just to have Kevin Allen not still serving his 35-year sentence from his life sentence for 2 dime bags. That's what can't happen.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with Stephanie more. I would love to live in a world where this isn't a fight for us anymore. We're not fighting to be at the table. We're fighting to figure out what's the biggest impact that we can make. And that just isn't the case today. So when people still talk about legalization, especially with lawmakers, in their head, they're thinking market structure, zoning laws, all that sort of stuff. I want to be included on that list to say retroactive relief is just as important as figuring out where the taxes go. because we need to figure out where do these people go? Because they exist, their families exist, and they are not whole. It doesn't matter how many, big of market share you get there. That does not impact that individual until they are out of that situation, they're out of supervision, and they can go home.
Yeah.
Well, I think
And
you guys
carry on with their lives.
Absolutely.
I think
Awesome.
you guys are setting the stage for that and really building the roadmap. So I hope we are there in 5 years, and I hope we're also at one of our first zero states. Let's more than one. I hope we're at several zero states for you.
And last question from Iggy Garcia. If someone leaves today with only one takeaway, what do you hope it is?
For me, it's that we can't do it just alone. It can't just be a few people in the fight. If you care about the plant, if you care about people, if you care about families, your neighbors, this is something that everybody has to be a part of.
Share the story. I would say that's it. This is a problem, and people need to know it's a problem. I think there's a misconception, again, going back, that legalization fixes this issue that we're working on, and it doesn't. So even if you live in a state that's legalized, question that. Ask yourself and ask your lawmakers, ask your friends, did you know that this is a problem? Did you know we haven't done anything about it? And what does it look like to move on to that next step? So share the story.
I love that. Thank you guys so much. This has been an absolutely amazing discussion today. And I know I feel empowered, and I hope everyone else does too, to get involved. It takes the community, as we've learned here today. So let's all make sure we're doing our part to fight for justice in this world. Stephanie, Adrian, thank you guys so much again. I hope you have a
Thank
lovely
you.
rest of your week. And thank you everyone so much for joining us today.
Thanks, y'all. Really
Thank you
appreciate it.
guys. Thank everybody
Thanks,
who
everyone.
joined.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.